A lot of books. Hey friends, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to share my first wrap up of 2020 with you. This is my January 2020 reading wrap up, and I have a lot to talk about, but it should go fairly quickly because I have talked to you guys about a lot of these books in different videos leading up to this wrap up. First four books that I'm going to talk to you about are Bloom, Hunger, Illuminate, and Birthday, and these are books that I read for my one title reading vlog. So basically all of these books have one word in the title, and I thought that that's going to be a series that I continue across the year, picking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more words for titles and just reading a variety of those books. First one that I have to talk to you about, oh, and two of these two I actually read at the very end of December. I think I read them on New Year's Eve, and then these two were my actual first books of 2020. So Bloom is the first one I'm going to talk to you about, but like I said, I'm not going too into depth because I have a whole reading vlog of these four books. So Bloom, we follow one boy that belongs to a family of bakers. They have this bake shop. He doesn't want to work there anymore. He wants to move to a big city and be in this band. However, his parents really need him in the bakery. His sister just got married, so he decides to put out a help wanted ad. Hector comes along. And then they kind of develop this romance. So it's a male-male romance. It's really cute. It has this really nice pale blue and black-white illustration and coloring to it, which I really liked. And I think I rated this 4 or 5 stars. I don't quite remember, but I think it was 5 out of 5 stars. I think it was 4 out of 5 stars because I did have some downsides to it, which I talked about in my Goodreads review, and I also talked about it in that vlog. Some things I felt unfinished, and the ending was kind of rushed. That's what I remember. Okay, Hunger by Roxane Gay was my first nonfiction book in a very long time. This is Roxane Gay's memoir about her body and her relationship to food and how it all came to be. Basically, at 12 years old, she was raped by a boy that she thought she loved, actually gang raped by her boyfriend and some other boys that he was friends with. So yeah, very tragic story, but very honest and real and raw. So if you can handle that type of content, I highly recommend it. I felt so connected to her after reading this book. Okay, now let's jump into the books that I actually read in January 2020. The first one is Illuminated by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the first time I'm picking up these authors, which I am doing. I have a bullet journal this year, and I do have a 2020 stats spread going on right now. It's a minimal, as you can see. I've just logged my January 2020 stats into here, and I am keeping a log down here at the bottom if it's a new author or if I've read them before. So hopefully I can share that spread at the end of the year when all the stats are filled in and let you know all of the stats. So okay, so I read this and I think I liked the layout. I liked the characters, but I just felt that 95% of the story was one story, and then at the very end it changed it, and I didn't really like that. I'm not a sci-fi reader. There's very few sci-fi that I have read and enjoyed, and I ended up rating this 2 out of 5 stars, but I really go more in depth in my thoughts in that video, so if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. Next up, I read Birthday by Meredith Russo. I've also read her other book, If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo, and I really enjoyed this one. I rated it 5 out of 5 stars when I read it. This one I only rated 3 out of 5 stars. Again, I talk about it much more in that video. I thought it was really great, but there were just some things about it that I didn't really care for. So yeah, I still think 3 out of 5 stars is a pretty good rating overall. Okay, one book that I actually read in January that I haven't talked to you about at all before that I read is The Grace Year by Kim Leggett. I'm not really sure if that's how you say her name, but I absolutely adored this book. I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. I really feel like it's a cross between The Hunger Games and The Giver. It has aspects of both. There's kind of this not really a competition, but basically the premise of this story is that at 16 years old, these girls are whisked away to the woods from their town, and they have to live a year out in the wild fending for themselves while their magic, their I don't know exactly what it's called again. Yeah, just their magic, to release their magic into the wild so that they can return purified and ready for marriage. So basically right before they go, there's this ceremony where there's like this flower ceremony where the guys give girls this flower that says, I want to marry you when you get back. And so then they leave right after that and they go live in the wild for a year, and things go down, and then they return after that year, and it's been going on forever. Like, this is the way of this like community, town, world, I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely a smart book. It's definitely crazy, and it has that like giver mentality, how like their lives are kind of set up for them. They don't really get to choose, and if they don't get married, then they do like certain jobs and stuff like that for the community. And then the more Hunger Games aspect comes once they go away for their grace year. But yeah, it's really crazy. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend you pick it up. I haven't heard like too many people talking about it. I've seen a lot of people hauling it, not a lot of people reading it, and you need to get on it because I really enjoyed it. Okay, now the next stack of books are kind of like all kind of go together with series. So even though I didn't read them in this particular order, I'm going to just go ahead and talk about them together. Before I do that, I'll just say that I read 2 of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. Both of these were rereads for me. This was my favorite book of last year, After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is about a man and a woman that are happily married, but as their marriage continues, they're just kind of at each other's throat, and instead of getting a divorce, they decide to take a 1-year separation trial, and during that year they can date other people and do all kinds of stuff, but at the end of the year they will reconvene and kind of decide, is our marriage over? Do we still love each other? What's going on? And I just absolutely love this, and it was always a toss-up for me, like my favorite book by Taylor Jenkins Reid between this one and this one. Although this was the first book that I read by her, and it will always hold that like nostalgic part of me for that reason, I decided to reread this, and I did absolutely love it. They're both 5 out of 5 stars, but now I can confidently say that After I Do is my favorite, all-time favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book. So highly recommend. Yeah, I just really love these. These are contemporary romance stories. I've already told you the premise of this one. If you don't know what this one about, this is about a young girl that marries this guy that she had a crush on in high school, and they get married. They have a wonderful life. They do lots of traveling and stuff like that, and on the eve or a couple of days before their 1-year wedding anniversary, her husband decides to take this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go on this like trip and do these photography. I think it was like in Alaska or something like that. And he goes and the plane crashes and he dies. And of course she's grieving because like that was her one true love. So she ends up moving back home where she never thought she would be. She starts working in her parents' bookstore again, and she just never thought her life would be like what it turned out to be. She bumps into an old friend that used to work at the bookstore, Sam, and they kind of rekindle their friendship, and then a romance blossoms, and now they're engaged, and now he's her one true love. However, she gets a phone call when she's out to dinner one night with her parents, and her husband actually did not die in the crash, and he's very much alive. So, and I don't think that that's a spoiler because it's literally on the very first page. I'm finishing up my dinner with my family and my fiance when my husband calls. It's the very first line of the book. So yeah, it's very interesting, and now you're battling, you know, is she with this new guy? Is she with this old guy? And it's all about exploring what you want, who you are, and what you want your life to be. So both of these have very good themes that I think could resonate with a lot of people, especially if you're married or in a committed relationship. And I just love them both with my whole heart, but After I Do is definitely my favorite. Let's jump into those series. So I read the illustrated editions of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets and Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. The first time I read these was a very long time ago. I read the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets on my wedding anniversary cruise, like our honeymoon cruise, and I didn't remember like too much about it. I knew the basics because I've watched the movies like tons of times, but I definitely think the books obviously go into more detail. I won't say it's my favorite. It's probably my least favorite of the series so far, but I've only read books 1, 2, and 3, so keep that in mind. Okay, as far as Prisoner of Azkaban, I remember it not really being like the first time that I read it, it didn't really stand out to me, but this time I really, really liked it. It gets a little bit darker. There's so many like big plot things that happen that carry out through the rest of the season and the series, and I don't know, I just loved it so much. And it is a little bit longer, so I think that kind of helped. And it's just, I just love this series so much. But I'm leaving these unrated just because like they're middle grade and they got published so long ago. So if I would have read them, like when I read them the first time, I rated them 5 out of 5 stars just because I think they're so magical, so whimsical. I love the plot. I love the pacing. I love the twists and turns that our characters have to go through. I love their development and their friendship and the found family aspects. And I love that there's like one overarching like thing that happens at Hogwarts, and there's so much good in here. But like I said, I think when I was talking in a vlog about it or something, just so much has gone on with the author and stuff like that, that it's kind of hard to, at this point, to separate the art from the artist. And yeah. So I'm just leaving them unrated, but I am secretly enjoying them. So yes, I read the first and second, and I'm listening to them on audio and also reading the illustrated editions. So when Goblet of Fire comes in, that will be my next Harry Potter read, obviously, and it will be the first time I'm reading it. So that's exciting. Okay, another series that I reread and caught up on is the Wayward Children series, and the books in this series is Every Hearted Doorway by Shauna Maguire, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, Beneath the Sugar Sky, In an Absent Dream, and Come Tumbling Down. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this series so far. I have no idea how many books are going to be in this series, but I really, really hope that we get a new world that's fully fleshed out, how the Moors was in book 2. So in the first 3 books, I've actually read before. And then these last 2 were the first time I read them. So the first time I read all of these, I rated them 5 stars. The second time I read this, I rated it 5 stars. The second time I read this, I rated it 5 stars. The second time reading this, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And I remember from my initial reading that I was being very generous because I didn't love this as much as the other ones, and it felt a little not good enough. I'm gonna get into my thoughts. And then these 2 I both rated 3 out of 5 stars. Don't come for me. I'm still really enjoying the series. I plan to continue. It's just that, let me get into my thoughts. Okay, so this series is about children that have entered a magical doorway world, and they have come back from that magical doorway world, and now they're trying to get back to that place, and they're trying to tell their friends and their family about they need to get back to this doorway, and everybody thinks they're crazy. So Eleanor West has set up this home for these wayward children, and she tells the parents like, oh, we're gonna fix it, don't worry, you know, we can take care of this problem, when really she herself is one of those people that have gone to one of these magical doorway worlds, and she believes the children and she's helping them hold out hope. So in the first book, we see the children at Eleanor West's School for Wayward Children, and we meet a variety of characters, and we find out about how the doorways work, and we're following like one girl as she just got back, and she's at Eleanor West School, and she's meeting characters and hearing about the world and stuff like that. So this is like a good groundwork, you know, story. I really loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. It's really good. And then we have Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which follows 2 characters that we met in the first book as they went to from pre-birth to their birth up until however old they were before they went to their magical doorway world. Now they have gone through to their magical doorway world, which is the Moors, and the Moors is like this like dark, has a blood moon, vampires, mad scientists, and it's just really, really good. I felt like, considering that it's like 200 pages and it really tells their entire story from like before they were born up until like when they were born, and their grandmother had to come live with them because they had crappy parents, and then they go to the world and everything that happens there, like, it's so well fleshed out, and I really felt like I got to know these characters and the world, and I could paint a picture for you. I know everything there is to know about this world. So I loved it. It was 5 out of 5 stars, and of these 2, this is my absolute favorite. Spoiler alert, this is my favorite in the series so far. Next up was Beneath the Sugar Sky, and I am glad that we traveled to a couple of different worlds in here. We got to see the Halls of the Dead a tiny bit. We got to see Confection a little bit, and this was supposed to be like the Confection story in my opinion, and it wasn't, because we visited like the real world. We went to several different worlds, and then we went to Confection. And even though Confection seemed like it was explained okay, I never thought I got a full grasp on the world and how the politics worked there and what it looked like and how people lived day to day. And yeah, we just saw like our characters from Eleanor's School from Wayward Children visiting this place, and I don't know, it just didn't like stand up as like this one went really good into depth. This one did not so much. Next up, I read In an Absent Dream, and this is the 4th book. And in this book, we follow a character that we have met in previous books, and we go to the Goblin Market for the first time. And I liked the explanation of the character and a little bit of their backstory, although I still don't feel like we got enough. And in this story, this is the first time we're like dipping our toes in the real world, going back to the doorway world, real world, doorway, real world, doorway. And it flipped back and forth so many times that I never got a grasp on the real world situation for this character and the doorway world for this situation. And to be completely honest, I think my favorite part of these books is either at home with Eleanor's School for Wayward Children, the interactions between the characters and things that are going on there, and the actual doorway worlds. I do not care anything about the real world when I'm in this fantasy fairy tale series. And since we jumped back and forth and I never got a sense of the real world or the doorway world, that's why I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. What I did get of the Goblin Market, I really, really liked, but I only feel like we got like a very, very small piece of it. And I think there is much, much, much more to explore in this world. And I definitely hope that we go back there, not with the same character though. I want to see a new character in that world, and characters were brought up that have been here before, and I want to go there and decide, see what happened while that person was there and what happened after. So make it happen. And then the last one is that I've read so far, and this just got published in January. I think it was like January 8th, January 10th, somewhere around there. So that's why I decided to like reread and move on in the series. So in this one, unfortunately, I don't like to read too much about who we're following, what world we're going to visit, and all of that. So it was a complete surprise to me that we're following the same characters from Down Among the Sticks and Bones. And as you can see, these worlds look completely different, but we're going back to the same world. So I didn't love that. And I loved this one so much, and to not like this one, this is probably my least favorite of the entire series so far. If you're following these characters, their story starts in Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and then they end up in Every Heart a Doorway. That's how their story continues. And then from there, their story continues and Come Tumbling Down. So you really do have to read the entire series to kind of like know everything that happened and understand things that are going on in this book. And I don't know how I feel about that, to be completely honest, because I feel like I could pick up other books and enjoy them for what they are. Like, even though I didn't love this one so much, and this character was mentioned in other books, I don't think that we needed to read the other book to read this one. And I just didn't want to follow these characters anymore in their world anymore. I think that it ended fine this way, and I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan. So let's move on. But the good thing is I am caught up on the series, and every time that a new book comes out, I don't know if I'm going to reread or what, but I feel pretty fresh right now with everything that's going on. So that's a good thing. And the last 3 books I read were the Girl of Fire and Thorns trilogy. I did do a full reading vlog of this, so if you're interested in more of my thoughts as I read, I highly recommend checking out that video. But let me just say, I rated all 3 of these books 5 out of 5 stars. I have said time and time again that I think it is a great YA fantasy book. If you're looking for like a beginner fantasy, I highly recommend this. It has fat rep in it. It has people of color in it. It has politics and magic and religion and warring kingdoms and adventure and kidnapping, and it's just so good. Every time I was reading this, like, I didn't want it to end, but I read these so fast because they're so good. The pacing is perfect. The writing is beautiful. Everything is well explained. The environment is rich. The food, it sounds delicious. And I highly recommend it. So the first book is The Girl of Fire and Thorns by Rae Carson, which I have read this before. So yeah. I rated it 5 out of 5 stars then. I'm rating it 5 out of 5 stars again. Next up is The Crown of Embers, and then we finish up with The Bitter Kingdom. So as far as like what order I like them in, I would say these are kind of tied. Every book sets its own tone, and they're all a little bit different. And this one, we're really getting used to, like, Elisa gets married. She's shipped off to this kingdom with this prince that she basically knew, or this king that she knew nothing about. She's trying to find her footing in this new world among her new court and things like that. But the plot shifts several times. It's fleeting one direction, it branches off, it goes in this direction, and you're going down that direction. It branches off and it goes into a different direction. And it just makes for a very exciting, adventurous, fast-paced read. Now, in this one, it follows the events of the first book, but not like directly. It does something in this that didn't happen in the first, and I'm really, really excited about this. This one has like a little bit more romance, which I was loving. So yeah, that's what I liked about this book more. And the third book was surprisingly probably my least favorite. So I would probably say that it just kind of goes down, 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 like as far as like how much I loved it. But I don't know, I love these both for different reasons, so it's hard. But then I love this too because it has things that these didn't. All of them have like adventure and stuff like that, but this one is really like quite the adventure story. You're venturing across the continent and back, and it's just, I don't know, it's just so good. And you know the characters more and the personalities more, and you see what happens, and people die, and power is finally restored, and oh, it's just so good. So yeah, they're all good for like different reasons. You just need to read the trilogy. This is a super old trilogy, but if you haven't read it and you're looking to dip your toes into fantasy, I highly recommend this. I also think you should just go back and read this because this is one of the best fantasies that I've read. So yeah. So that wraps up what I read in January. It was quite a bit, I know, but if you stuck around to the end, I appreciate it so much. I do have grand plans in February, but I do not think I'm going to have time for a contemporary-a-thon, although I do hope to get to some contemporary books in the month of February. So maybe I'll participate. I don't know, you guys, but I do want to go ahead and shout it out. That is happening from February 10th to the 16th, I believe, and I'm really excited about it. I was trying to make it work. I just don't think with my like work schedule and reading schedule it is gonna work, but if it does, I'll let you guys know. But that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're having a lovely day, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye.